Hello, everyone. Let's give it just maybe one more moment and see if some more people join. Hi, I'm seeing a couple people
Hello.
video on. Hi. Anyone on so far who's planning to cook along with me?
Oh, I guess I didn't even realize that was an option.
Oh yeah, well maybe next time if you
Next
get the recipe.
time.
Yeah, you can get all the ingredients ahead of time and
Cool.
put together. Yeah. Is this the first class of mine that you've come to?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Well,
Yep.
welcome. I'll announce it
Thank
at the
you.
end. I'll be doing another similar meal prep class in May.
In May. All right.
My phone saying it's preheated. Well, I will go ahead and get started, and we may have some more people joining in. And welcome, everyone. My name is Lili Hanft, and it's great to have you all here this afternoon. I'm a functional nutritional therapy practitioner, so I work with clients on their diet and lifestyle and just like nourishing our bodies with real whole healthy foods to feel our best. And a big part of the work that I do is helping people get excited about cooking. And a part of that is batch cooking, right? So this idea that we'll make a whole bunch of food like on a Sunday afternoon, and then it's a great way to have healthy meals throughout the week without having to be cooking a full-on dinner every day or every night of the week. So that is what the plan is for this afternoon. If you got the recipes ahead of time and are planning to cook along, that is wonderful. Otherwise, you can just watch and ask questions. It's nice to have this be interactive. And then you can make these recipes on your own time. So as I said, I've got my oven all preheated to 350. And when I'm doing a batch cooking day like we are this afternoon, I like to think about getting the things started first that are going to take the longest. So for the menu today, that's going to be the chicken and also the frittata. So we'll get those in the oven first and then move on to things that take a bit less time. Also, I've got a nice variety of macronutrients here, which is also something that I'm thinking about when I'm planning meal prep, so that we'll have some protein sources, some carbs, some veggies to create balanced meals throughout the week. Now I've got the recipes that I'm making will make enough for one person to have multiple meals for several days. But if you're cooking for more people, these are very simple, flexible recipes, and you can easily double, triple them depending on how many people and how many meals you want to prep for. So to get started, I'm going to get that chicken into the oven first because I know that will take the longest to bake. And what I'm using today are just some organic chicken legs. So these are easy, quick protein, right? They're gonna cook in probably under an hour. And I'm gonna do a simple honey mustard dressing on them. Just adds nice flavor, but still it's pretty simple. So you can pair it with different, different ingredients and have it in different ways throughout the week. So as I said, my oven is preheated to 350, and I'm just gonna use this glass baking dish here. And I'll lay my chicken legs right in there. I really do like to emphasize organic and ideally locally sourced and pasture raised with animal products whenever possible. there. And then the dressing for this is super simple. I have about a tablespoon of Dijon mustard here. And I'm just going to add an equal part, about a tablespoon of honey. And this is like a nice local Vermont raw honey. And we'll add a little bit of salt and pepper and just stir that together.
Lily, is it a whole grain or a smooth?
You know, if I had whole grain, I would probably go with that. But what I had in my fridge was smooth. So I'm just using that and it will still work great. The whole grain would just add a little more interest in how it would look on the chicken. You see it comes together into a nice runny dressing like that. I'm going to add a little pinch of sea salt. A little bit of black pepper. I'm just going to pour this right over the top of my chicken. And spread it over there. Now I know that I have a whole bunch of asparagus here, and I'm only going to use about half of that for the other recipe that we're doing today, that frittata. So I think, even though my pan's a bit small, I think I'm going to put a few spears of asparagus around the chicken, probably partway through cooking, since it won't take as long as the chicken. And then those can roast and get some of the nice flavor from the chicken and the dressing as well. So we'll see if I remember. Halfway through, put some asparagus in. It's just a nice little multi-purpose trick, right? When you're roasting something like chicken, is to add some vegetables into the roasting pan. They get really nice flavor, and you're doing batch prep. You're getting multiple things cooked at once, and also saving on dishes, which is all of the plus. So I've got that dressing spread all nicely over the chicken, and I'm going to go ahead and put this into my preheated oven. I think I saw chat come in. I'll probably miss some as I'm going through, but I'll definitely look at the end. Let's see. Perfect. Okay, yes, and Megan has put the handout with the recipes in the chat, so that's awesome. If you didn't get it when you signed up, you can get that PDF in the chat. And feel free to unmute and ask questions as we're going through, and you can also type them in the chat, and I'll definitely check them at the end. All right, so now that chicken is all set in the oven, that was quick and easy. Let's go ahead and get going on this springtime veggie frittata. So I've got a baking dish here. This is about a 9x7 Pyrex dish. I love doing frittata in here. It has a cover, so I'll just bake it, cool it, and then put the cover on it. And this will be breakfast for the week. I can cut it into little pieces. Sometimes people like to do these oven bakes in individual muffin tins, so that's definitely an option too. But this just saves on space in the fridge. And I've greased this with a little bit of coconut oil. You could do olive oil, butter, but just a little greasing there to keep it from sticking. And I'm just going to chop the veggies and add them directly in here. We're doing broccoli and asparagus and peas. And if I chop these small, they're actually going to cook through right along with the eggs. So I don't need to pre-saute them. Makes it a really simple recipe. So I have a head of broccoli here. I might not do quite all of this. We'll see how it's looking. I would probably do half if it was a little bit larger. This, if you've come to any of my other meal prep classes, you know I almost always have some variation on a egg bake or frittata. it's just such a awesome, easy protein to meal prep because eggs are such a nice breakfast food, and pairing them with the veggies, you're getting in some vegetables at breakfast, which is often harder to do. And it's so like easy to eat during the week. It doesn't require any cooking, but something that you can do almost endless variations on. So today we're doing a sort of spring theme, right, with asparagus and feta and peas. But I also like to do an autumn theme in the fall, do like apples and kale and red onions. Other nice combos are, again, broccoli, mushrooms, onions, carrots. You can do zucchini, so many different varieties. I think I'm going to do all of the broccoli florets in here. And I'll actually save the stalk. If you didn't know, you can eat the stalk of broccoli. It tastes just as nice as the florets. So I'll probably cut this up and steam it for another meal. Especially when you're buying organic produce and it's a little pricier, it's nice to get the benefit of all of it and use the whole vegetable. I've got my broccoli in here, and then I'm going to do some spears of asparagus. I'll just cut off that tough bottom end and then cut it into about 1-inch pieces. If you have some other spring veggies in your fridge, you could definitely sub those out. Very, very flexible recipe. Another trick when I'm doing meal prep is I like to have a bowl near me to put all of the compost scraps in. This way I don't have to reach far to put them away, and it just keeps my workspace tidy. I've got this bowl for that. All right, I think I'll do a little bit more. That's looking good. And now I'll go ahead and add those. These are just frozen green peas. Of course, if you have fresh, you could use those. Just adding those over the top. And now I'm going to go ahead and whisk the eggs for the frittata. And I have some lovely organic pasture-raised local eggs here. Eggs are a wonderful source of protein and healthy fats. Also some nutrients like choline and vitamin K2 that are a little bit harder to get in the diet. So eggs are a great source of those. And when they're coming from chickens that are out eating bugs and scratching in the grass, they're going to be rich in omega-3 fatty acids and vitamin A, all those good nutrients. And you can see how gorgeous and orange these yolks are. Not sure how it comes across on camera, but that is a sign that the chickens have been out and eating bugs and grass. So I'm doing 6 of these large pasture-raised eggs in here. And as I said, you could do this in a larger dish, you could double it and make a whole bunch more for more people. I usually have about 2 eggs worth of frittata for breakfast. I've got eggs in here, and then I like to do just a little bit of water. So maybe, I don't know, maybe a 1/4 cup or so. And then salt and pepper. Probably about a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I honestly don't really measure, but something like that. The more flexible and free you can feel in the kitchen, and the more you're willing to just experiment and try things out, the more the more the more cooking you'll do, right? Because it will be fun and you won't feel tied to a recipe. So I'm always encouraging people, try it out, experiment, and usually things turn out well. We all have an occasional failure, but just learning to be comfortable in the kitchen and use what you have on hand is such a good skill. I'm whisking those eggs up with the water. And then I'll go ahead and pour them over top of the veggies. So this is sort of like a lazy egg bake, right? We're not sauteing the veggies ahead of time, but they'll still get nice and tender in the eggs. And it's just a quicker way to do it. And then last of all, I have 2 ounces of feta. This is actually a Bulgarian sheep's milk feta, but you could use any sort of feta that I've diced up into little, probably like 1/2-inch cubes. And I'm going to sprinkle it over the top here, and it will melt into the eggs a bit. And then this is all ready to go into the oven. It'll probably take maybe 30-40 minutes. I'll just keep checking on it until it is all the eggs have set. And the great thing is that most of the recipes, like simple recipes like this, you can just do them all at 350. So we can use the oven for a whole bunch of things and save on time. I think I saw some questions come in, so I will go check the chat. Okay, so okay, and Megan reshared the PDF, awesome. Is it a Mediterranean recipe? I mean, I guess the flavors are sort of Mediterranean. Yeah, not necessarily, but you could definitely go with that theme. All right, so now that our 2 longer baking things are in the oven, I am going to get started on the crackers, which also goes in the oven. Now, this is a really fun recipe. If you're not familiar with plantains, this is actually what we're making these crackers out of. So I love plantains. They're so versatile, and they make things like crackers that are gluten-free and actually grain-free, so paleo-friendly. And they're just a great source of something called resistant starch, which is a starch that actually feeds our healthy gut bacteria. And it's just like so nice to make something like crackers out of a whole food rather than a flour. So fun, creative recipe. And yeah, if you haven't played around with plantains, there's all sorts of things you can do with them. Now they can be a little tricky to peel when they're green, and you do want them green for this recipe. So like a banana, they, as they ripen, they'll turn more yellow and get brown and black spots on them. But for this recipe, you want them starchy rather than sweet. So you want the green kind. And you can get these at the co-op, the banana co-op. So yeah, I've got a couple of these green plantains here. And let me show you the way I like to peel them. So I start by cutting off the 2 ends. And then I cut it in half, like that. And then I find if I score the skin or the peel in maybe like 3 or 4 different places around the plantain, I can then use my thumb and start to pry off that peel. Some come off a little more easily than others, but this is coming off pretty well. But if you try to peel it like a ripe banana, it will probably not come off very well. I've got one part of that peeled, and I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on the others. Another common thing to do with plantains is to fry them. So you slice the plantains into rings and then fry them off with coconut oil, and then you kind of smush them or smash them and then refry them, and they get crispy. But I've done a variety of different baked things with blended up plantains, which actually have turned out really well as the recipe is today for the crackers. And if you do use the riper ones, they're going to be sweeter, and so you could, put them in a sweeter kind of recipe like a cake or something like that. And there's some fun grain-free cake recipes made with plantains you can find on the internet. So the crackers are going to be a nice thing to have on hand for the week because they make a great snack. So you can pair them with some cheese, with some hummus, like an olive tapenade. They just make a really nice snack. And they're also providing a carbohydrate source for our meal prep. So as I said earlier, I like to have some veggies, and we'll be doing those carrot noodles later. Some protein sources. We'll have the chicken, which could be part of a lunch, parts of dinner for the week. And then, we've got the veggie side of the carrots. And then we're getting some starches in with the plantains. A lot of people who find that maybe grain products, bread products, those flours, they maybe don't digest as well, will often do better with something like a plantain, because it doesn't have the phytic acid and other anti-nutrients. So definitely a good option if you find that grains and breads tend to be a little hard to digest. All right, so I've got my plantain all peeled here. And for this, you definitely will want a good food processor to blend everything up. I'm going to roughly chop the plantains into about that size pieces and add them to the food processor. I'm going with really simple, plain flavor today, but you could totally get creative and add Italian herbs. You could add sun-dried tomato or garlic. I'm sure any of those flavors would be good, and for cracker flavors. You can see it's quite firm. It's almost more like the texture of potato, right? It's actually a starch, whereas when they become ripe, they're more soft like a ripe banana is. Okay, so we've got our 2 plantains. And now I'm going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And then 2 tablespoons of a fat or an oil. So I'm using some pasture-raised organic lard here, which has a nice flavor and is a good heat-stable fat. But you could also use some coconut oil. That would have a bit of a different flavor. I haven't tried it, but I'm sure like olive oil, any of those kind of unprocessed fats. I just encourage people to stay away from things like the canola oil, the soybean oil, because those are more inflammatory. But something like this will just help them to brown and add a bit of flavor too. And then all that's left to do is just blend this up into a nice smooth paste, and then we'll spread it on the cookie sheet. So this is going to be noisy for a moment, though I think maybe Zoom has a setting where it mutes the noise, so we'll see. pause it and scrape down the sides, make sure everything's blending smoothly. Looking pretty good. I'm gonna go a little bit longer just to make sure we don't have any lumps of plantain in there. Looking good. So now it's just a matter of spreading this on our cookie sheet in a nice thin even layer to make those crackers. And I've laid a piece of parchment paper on the cookie sheet so that they won't stick and will peel up easily. You can see it looks just like a dough that we had made with flour, but it's actually made with the plantains. So a little tip, if you get plantains that are green and you want to use them green, but aren't going to use them right away, good idea is to keep them in the fridge, and that will keep them from ripening. So I had actually purchased these about a week ago, and then they kept from ripening in the fridge. I'll start spreading this out on my cookie sheet. The thinner and more even the layer, the better for the crackers. While I'm doing this, I can chat a little bit about just the general concept of creating balanced meals with the different meal prepped components that you make on like a batch cooking day. So the idea is not to be making every single meal, right, that you're going to eat for the whole week, but just to get a head start on some cooking and maybe some things that take a bit longer. And that way you can eat different meals every day of the week, but you're not doing as much cooking. So like with what we're doing today, I will have that roast chicken in the fridge for the next days. And maybe one night I'll just reheat a drumstick and have it with vegetables and potatoes. Another day I might dice it up and have it cold on top of a salad for lunch with some crackers on the side. You could even make a soup with it if you've got some bone broth, and throw some veggies in there. So that way you're eating different meals every day of the week, but cutting down on that prep time. And same idea with making the breakfast frittata. That way you can have a really nice protein-rich breakfast. And this is something I really recommend if you haven't experimented with having a more hearty, even a savory breakfast. I think it's definitely worth a try, especially if you're someone who finds that your energy kind of crashes mid-morning, or maybe you find that you get sugar cravings or kind of tired midday. Sometimes that's because we're not quite getting the fuel our bodies need in the morning. And especially that protein in the morning is really helpful for balancing blood sugar. And you might be like, well, what's blood sugar have to do with anything? But it actually has a lot to do with how we feel. So when you eat foods, especially foods higher in carbohydrates, so things like bread and pasta, but also fruit and potatoes, if you eat those foods alone, they tend to spike blood sugar more, and then you often get a crash later on because your body releases a whole bunch of insulin, and then that drops your blood sugar. So then you get a quick burst of energy after that bagel or pastry that you have for breakfast. But if you're not pairing that with some protein or fat, it often results in that quick energy, but then a crash later on. Whereas if you have something like the frittata we're doing today that has eggs for protein and fat, and it has fiber also in the vegetables. And then if you have your maybe your toast or your fruit, your carbohydrate source along with that protein, it's going to lead to a much more balanced blood sugar response. And you'll probably find that you have more sustained energy throughout the morning. So I'm always a fan of self-experimentation, right? And doing a little science project on ourselves. And that's where keeping a food journal can be so helpful, because we are all different. But some of these principles are applied to a lot of people. And it's definitely something worth experimenting with to find the balance of macronutrients that's going to help you feel your best. And the same principle really applies to all of your meals. So like with what we're doing today, if I'm having that chicken for lunch, I'm also going to pair it with some vegetables for that fiber. And I'll also pair it with a carbohydrate source. So maybe that would be some crackers, or maybe that would be like a baked sweet potato or even an apple. And then I've got some healthy fats right in the chicken, but then maybe doing an avocado on the salad or an olive oil dressing or something like that. And you can think about the same principle at a snack. So for example, with some crackers like these, we have fat and we have carbohydrate right in here, but maybe I would have it with some grass-fed cheese to provide some protein, or some hummus to provide some protein. I've just about got these set. I tend to be on the fussy side of this, but you don't have to be super fussy. I'm just trying to get a nice thin layer. I would usually bake these at a slightly lower temperature, but I think they'll be fine at 350. I'll just keep checking them, and that way we can add them along with the other things that are in the oven. See here, it's a nice rectangle, and I'm going to go ahead and score it into crackers right now while the dough is still soft. Let's see, I think I'll do 12. So we'll do half. And then once they've baked, we'll be able to break them into the individual crackers. Along the score lines. Okay, there we go. I'm going with large crackers today, but you could definitely do whatever size you like. And I'm going to go ahead and put this into the oven, and I'll take a peek at the chicken and frittata, see how those are coming.
And is this the time that you might put asparagus in with the chicken?
Thank you. Oh my gosh, yes, let me do that. Thank you, thank you. Okay, yeah, so this is looking nice and starting to brown, and I'll just cut off those tough ends and put it in whole. I haven't actually done this before, so we'll see, but I think it will work nicely. Probably a slightly bigger pan would work better. All right. So chicken is in, frittata and crackers are all in the oven. And the last recipe that we're doing today is another really fun, creative, unusual kind of recipe. Again, instead of using a grain for a pasta, we're actually using a vegetable. So we're going to be making noodles out of these carrots and then doing a peanut sauce on them. And it makes a really nice, either warm or cold kind of salad and has really good flavor. Again, something that's great for meal prep. It's hearty, it will hold up in the fridge. And you can have it cold for lunch. You can reheat it, and you're getting a nice little dose of the veggies. So let me get my spiralizer out. If you haven't seen one of these, they're quite fun. This is the design that I have. Now they come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes and designs, but I've been quite happy with this one. And the way it works is that you attach it to the counter and then you place whatever vegetable you're going to spiralize in here and crank the handle and it turns it into noodles. So a really great way to make pasta dishes but with vegetables instead. And a popular one to do is zucchini. Any sort of cylindrical vegetable, right, is going to work well. Beets work well, turnips, parsnips. Ideally, a larger in diameter is good. And so for carrots, that's why I've chosen these giant carrots that I got at the co-op because we're going to get more noodles out of them since they're larger. So I'm going to go ahead and cut off the ends. You want nice flat surfaces for the spiralizer. And then attach one end here, the other one here. You'll see most of the spiralizers come with different size blades. I've got mine set with the smallest. I could have gone with the medium one. Well, we'll see how this goes, but I think it'll work well. And now, it's a little bit off center and this often happens. So I'm going to break that off and restart it. You can see we're getting all these fun carrot noodles. And I like to break it off periodically so that they don't get too unmanageably long. Otherwise, you'll have like carrot noodles forever. So fun. This is a great kids activity. They're kind of like what are those things called that do this? I can't remember. That's fun. And often you'll find there'll be little shorter sort of half moons that happen around the edges too, but that's fine.
Do you mean like silly string?
Is that what it's called? Yeah, maybe.
I don't know, but it reminds me.
Slinky.
Slinky, that's what
yeah,
exactly. You can see out of one carrot, a large carrot, you get a lot of noodles. It really spans the volume. All right, awesome. So I'm going to steam these. I find some people do their carrot noodles raw. You can totally do that. Obviously, they'd be very crunchy like that, and I like to soften them a little bit, especially with the creamy dressing we're doing. So I have a saucepan here, and I've just added a little bit of water so that we'll steam them in there. Sometimes I also do it in a frying pan with a lid and sort of saute them. I'm just going to add the noodles to there. If you're doing zucchini noodles, because zucchini does have so much water in it, you probably don't want to steam them. They'll just get super, super watery. But I find that either actually baking them or kind of sauteing them in the liquid that they just release naturally works well if you want to lightly cook them. A combo when it comes to zucchini season that I really like doing is pesto on zucchini noodles. It's a really, really nice, light, flavorful meal or combo. And then with the root veggies, I often like to do a nut butter dressing or a peanut butter dressing, something a little creamier and heartier. But even just doing, like, sometimes I'll do spiralized beets and toss that just in olive oil and lemon juice and maybe put some feta on there. And that is really nice too. It's just a fun, different way to eat vegetables, so it makes it a little more exciting. And then you end up having the centerpiece and the end, and I'll use these in some other recipe. And then I'll do the second carrot here. If you are looking to buy a spiralizer, I really like the tabletop variety. I know there's some that are handheld and you sort of crank your zucchini or carrot. But I find that those are just a little harder to use. And if you don't have a spiralizer and you still want to try this recipe, you can also just use a vegetable peeler and peel it into thin strips. And it won't look quite the same, but it will definitely still work. I find that some vegetables, often potatoes or sweet potatoes, if you cook them after you've spiralized them, they tend to break apart, just the nature of the veggie once it gets cooked. So that is why I definitely like things like carrots and turnips, because I find also parsnips. Those seem to break apart less even once they are cooked in the noodle form. But if you're looking for a whole bunch of spiralized recipes, there's a great blog, and she also has a few different cookbooks. It's called Inspiralized is her website. And I think that's the name of her cookbook as well. But just tons of creative, fun, veggie-focused recipes using the spiralizer. Our noodles in here. You can see the ones near the center are really tightly kinky, and then they're larger as it gets out toward the circumference of the carrot. Another good thing to look at when you're choosing veggies to spiralize is to look for ones that are more straight rather than like a crookneck squash or something like that. Just because of the way this is designed, they work better when the veggie is straight. You can also do like a winter squash or a butternut squash and saute that as well. All right, so carrot noodles are in my pot, and I'm gonna put on the lid and bring this to a boil, turn it down, simmer it, and just to lightly steam these carrots and make them a little more tender. starting to smell the plantain crackers a little bit. All right, so we've got that. Let me put this aside. Oh, someone's asking the brand of the spiralizer. Yes, I believe it's Paderno. Let me go take a look at it. I remember I just ordered it off Amazon quite a while ago. Yeah, it's Paderno, Paderno. It's definitely not like the most high-end one, but I've been happy with it. It's worked well for me. And it does have a few different settings. So it has that thin blade that we use today to make really thin spaghetti, and then it has a thicker one, and also one that makes a sort of flat, wide, flat noodle. So the last part to get ready is the dressing for the carrot noodles. And for that, it's really simple. It's a nice creamy dressing, and all it involves is whisking the ingredients together. I love doing nut or seed butter dressings using maybe almond butter, tahini. There's so many options because it's such an easy way to make a dairy-free but creamy dressing. And when you emulsify that butter with a little bit of water and vinegar or lemon juice, it turns into this just like wonderful creamy dressing. So if you're wanting to do a salad dressing, maybe to pair with that chicken, you could use something like tahini, which is sesame seed butter, and just whisk it in a little bowl with some lemon juice, maybe a little garlic and water to thin, and it will make a really nice creamy dressing. So that's sort of the basic idea, but we're doing a bit more flavor in this one. So I have some peanut butter here. This is organic peanut butter. I've got about 3 tablespoons of it. I'm going to add that. And then I'm going to do 1 teaspoon of this gluten-free tamari. So this is like a gluten-free soy sauce. And it adds that nice salty umami flavor. If you, I generally don't recommend consuming a lot of soy products, but if you are going to, then like a fermented soy is definitely the way to go, something like tamari. But if you want a totally soy-free option, you could use something called coconut aminos, which is actual coconut sap that's been fermented, and it has it's a little different, but a similar flavor to tamari. So added a teaspoon of that, and then this is a fun one, and you can totally leave it out, but I love to do a little bit of orange zest in here. I find like the carrot, the orange, the carrot, the peanut butter, it all kind of works together nicely. So I've just got a organic, you definitely want to go with organic when using the zest, an orange here. I'll just do, I don't know, maybe a 1/4 teaspoon or so of zest, depending on how orangey you like it. I see that my carrots are boiling, so I'm going to turn down the heat to just a medium low and let them simmer for a little bit. Citrus zest is such a nice way of adding a really bright pop of flavor and getting the most out of the produce that you're purchasing as well. A lot of the flavor is actually fat soluble, so it's concentrated in the oils and skin of the orange. And then For some additional flavor and that acidic component to the dressing, I've got a balsamic vinegar here. I'm going to do 1 tablespoon of balsamic. And then also a little bit of garlic. So I got a pretty large clove here. I'm not a huge raw garlic person, so I'll probably just do about half of this. If you want more garlicky flavor, definitely go for doing more. And this is a fun, this is actually a gift my mom got at a craft fair. It's like a little plate, and then the artisan, I think with a knitting needle, made little holes in it so that, and they're little ridges, and they're actually sharp in the clay after it was fired. So it's like a little mini sort of a grater, and it works awesome for garlic and ginger. But you could just use a microplane or a garlic press. So I'm just going to do about half of this little clove of garlic. The nice thing about this dressing is we don't use a blender or a food processor, and it makes it, less washing up. But if you wanted to throw this all into a little blender, that would work too. Someone's saying they're a big fan of garlic. Yes, yeah, you can definitely add as much garlic as you like. And if you didn't have fresh garlic, you could do some garlic powder as well. I'm just going to start stirring these together. I will add some water, but start. And the fun thing with these dressings is it always looks like, oh, it's so lumpy, it's never going to come together, and then it does, and it becomes so nice and creamy. Also going to add a little pinch of salt there. The tamari has some salt, but just for a little extra because we've got all those carrots. The peanut butter I had on hand was actually crunchy, so I'll have little peanut pieces throughout, which I think will be nice. But you could do a smooth peanut butter if you want it totally creamy. And then this is starting to come together. So now I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of water, which makes, it will still be a thick dressing, but that's good because the carrots will have a bit of moisture when they come out of steaming. I haven't tried it, but I bet this would actually be good on chicken. Like if you dice up some of your leftover chicken and put it in a skillet and added some of this peanut dressing and maybe some veggies, that would probably be a nice kind of stir fry to have as a quick weeknight dinner, and you don't have to do a lot of cooking. It's gonna peek on me crackers. Everything's looking good. So let those pretty much come together. Take a dressing like that, and it will then go over the carrots. I'm going to check on the carrots and see if they're tender. Again, it's totally, you can cook them as long as you like. I wouldn't overcook them or they'll get too mushy. So we'll see if they're ready. They're looking pretty good. Let's see. See, it's got nice and floppy, just like spaghetti. And when I break it with my fingers, it is pretty, yes, it's nice and tender. So that will still have good good texture. It's not mushy, but it's much softer than a raw carrot, which I find nice in this recipe. I'm going to drain off that little bit of steaming water so it doesn't get into the carrot. And then I'll go ahead and add them to this bowl to toss with the dressing and see how nice they look. When I was at the co-op yesterday, they still had some of these ginormous carrots. So if you're wanting to make this recipe, those would be perfect for it because they're nice and large for the spiralizer. All right, so carrot noodles are in. And now I'm going to pour over the peanut dressing and give it a good toss. It's smelling really nice. So the peanut sauce goes onto the hot noodles. I'm thinking I'm going to add a little bit more salt because I've got a lot of carrot noodles here and I didn't add much before. Have any of you guys watching, have you done spiralized recipes before? Have you made things like zucchini noodles or that sort of thing?
Let's just say my spiralizing attempts to date have not been pretty.
Oh no! I hope that didn't involve any cut fingers or anything.
No injuries were had.
Good. Well, hopefully you'll find a good spiralizer and have some more successful experiments. But
that one that you used is relatively inexpensive and has 6 blade options.
Yeah, I think it's just like $30 or something like that.
Well, right now it's on sale for 15.
Oh my gosh, wow. And is it the same one with the the sticky feet?
It looked very similar to what you had, and it's that same model name.
Oh, awesome. Good. Well, yeah, if you try it out and it works well, definitely let me know, and let me know what recipes you try with it. Especially as we're getting into summer there and all the summer produce is coming. It's a nice time to get a spiralizer and try out some new recipes. There is the finished salad, the finished carrot noodles. And again, this is delicious cold as well as warm, and will keep in the fridge probably nicely through the rest of the week as a nice way of getting in veggies and adding a pop of flavor and color to meals. And now I'll go ahead and check on the other recipes, the other dishes in the oven, and see how those are coming. The crackers are looking good. They're starting to separate along the score lines. Now they're still a little bit soft, so you can see it's no longer a batter, right? It's about like the texture of a tortilla, actually. You can see that. So if you wanted tortillas, you could stop at this stage and eat it like a soft flatbread. But I'm going to put it back in the oven for a bit longer until it gets more dried out and firm like a cracker. So you will be wrapping up the class before they are totally crispy. But you can, if you look in the handout, there's a picture of the crispy finished crackers, and you can get an idea of what they'll look like. What I might even do is let them bake for a few more minutes and then just turn off the oven and let them sit in the hot oven in that residual dry heat until they get nice and crunchy. That way they don't burn, but continue to bake slowly. And I'll pull out the chicken and the frittata. I can see that they both need a little bit longer, probably another 10-15 minutes just to completely cook, but they're looking good, and you'll be able to see what they look like currently. Here is the chicken, smelling really good. And I'll go by cutting into the joint a little bit, make sure that the juices are running clear to know that it's done. But again, it'll probably take a little bit longer. But it's already making some nice drippings in the bottom of the pan, which are going to have awesome flavor. Definitely save those drippings because they'll have all the honey mustard flavor as well as the chicken. And the asparagus is nicely roasted. I might even take that out before and bake the chicken a little longer because it's pretty done. So you can see how nice that looks. It's the honey and the mustard browns the top of the chicken really nicely. And then finally, this frittata looks gorgeous. So pretty and spring colored. Again, I think, well, it might, I think it's actually done. I was gonna say, I think it needs a little longer, but let me poke a knife into it. I might give it like 5 more minutes. The egg is maybe not quite set in the very center, but it's mostly all set. You can see it started to puff up and all those nice little chunks of feta are melting in, and we've got the broccoli and asparagus that have got nice and tender in there. And it just looks so pretty and spring colored. So there is our meal prep for today. I hope this has given you guys some ideas and inspiration, and maybe some things that you've never tried before, like plantains or spiralized carrots, and just generally ideas for doing batch cooking on the weekend and then having wonderful, delicious food to have throughout the week and combine into different ways. And yeah, I think it's a great, whether you make these exact recipes or make your own spins on them, it's a great way to get ahead on healthy eating for the week. And I'll come over and check the chat now if there are any questions.
Yes, Lily. I just wondering if you can just let me know the recipe for the dressing, because I didn't see in the document in the PDF.
It should be on that page with the carrot noodles. There is the dressing on that same page.
I didn't see it. Let me just double check here.
Let's see.
I need to run. Thank you so much, Lily.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks. It's great.
Someone's asking if I cover the chicken for baking. I don't. So I find that because they're just the thighs or just the legs, they cook pretty relatively quickly, so they don't get too brown on top before the meat is all the way cooked through. So I don't cover them. People are saying looks delicious. So glad. The salt, yeah. So I use the Celtic sea salt. That is the one, and I also have some Redmond real salt. But the one I was using today is Celtic sea salt. It's true that they don't have that added iodine like a regular table salt would. So it is important to get iodine then in other places in your diet. But you can do that by eating things like seaweed and seafood. There's even a brand, I want to say it's called Sea Shakes, and they make these little shakers that combine sea salt with finely granulated seaweed. So you can use it as a seasoning. It's adding flavor to food, and also it's a really rich source of iodine because of that seaweed. So yeah, I think when we're using these unrefined salts that don't have the added seaweed or the added iodine, we just want to make sure we're getting iodine other places. A good question. If there's any questions or comments that I missed in the chat, or that if you guys have other questions, just let me know. And thank you all so much for coming. And as I said at the beginning, I will be teaching another meal prep class in May. I believe it's May 15th. And same idea as this. Obviously, we'll do different recipes that time. But if you want, you can cook along with me. I think a couple of people were doing that today. You'll get the recipes ahead of time when you sign up, and then you can cook right along with me, be making the things together, or you can just watch. But that will be the same theme where we're creating a protein, a veggie, some snacks to have nice balanced meals throughout the week. And if any of you are interested in working with me one-on-one to do nutrition consultations, or I also do private cooking classes virtually, you can check out my contact info, which is in the handout, that last page. We can set up a free 10-minute call and chat about your health goals, and if nutritional therapy is a good fit for you. Yeah, and I've also got an Instagram where I post lots of fun food photos and that sort of thing. Thank you all so much for coming. Have a great evening, everyone.